Okay, welcome to our webinar on surviving sexual assault part 2. My name is Tammy Pearson, and I'm an advocate for Safety Crisis Center. I work out of the Sulphur Springs Outreach Office, but our main office is located in Mount Pleasant, Texas. Last week, we went over those things that you would need to know right after a sexual assault happens, where to go, what to expect, and how to report. This week, we will discuss the forms of sexual assault, what happens after sexual assault, along with the recovery stages of surviving it. In this session, I'll be talking to those of you who've probably been through sexual assault and are working through your recovery, and those that have had loved ones sexually assaulted, and those who are possibly in training on how to address sexual assault in the workplace, or in their line of work. So I hope to address everyone in the room. In putting this session together, I've decided to do a separate week on child sexual assault because there's just too much information for this one session. For now, we'll discuss what happens when an adult has gone through a sexual assault. There's going to be many stages and layers to recovery, and it takes time, and the healing process can be very painful. But you can regain your sense of control, rebuild your self-worth, and learn to heal. So first, let's take a look at the forms of sexual assault and what that looks like. And if you'll remember last week, I had issues with my PowerPoint, so I'm gonna work through that today. Okay, so the forms of assault, there is the non-stranger rape or acquaintance rape, and this is sexual assault by someone known to the victim. Most sexual assault survivors are victims of acquaintance rape. The offender can be anyone from a casual acquaintance to a relative, or a boyfriend, just someone that they know. Basically, acquaintance rape occurs between persons who may or may not have had a previous sexual history and who may or may not have expectations of a sexual interaction. It is reported that about 3/4 of the rapes in the country, in this country, are committed by someone known to the victim. So those are very high percentages. Date rape, another form, is by definition sexual assault that occurs while on a date or between persons who expect to have an intimate relationship. Males and females are taught half-truths in our society. Men are taught to score with women. They believe women say no, but really mean yes, and just need a little persuasion. On the other hand, women are taught that flirting is an innocent and harmless game that everyone plays, yet women are also held responsible for being temptresses and blamed if they are victimized. The acquaintance date rape survivor will often suffer from an inability to trust as a result of the incident. The rape is a devastating act of betrayal because someone the victim trusted or maybe loved assaulted them. And this will often lead the victim questioning who they can tell. Can anyone be trusted, and will anyone believe me? The third form of sexual assault is stranger rape, and that is a violent and unprovoked attack by a stranger. While these types of crimes are very serious, they make up a minority of the total sexual assaults. One of the first comprehensive studies that was ever conducted on sexual assault found that only 22% of perpetrators of sexual assault are strangers to the victims. And then our fourth form of sexual assault is rape within marriage. And this can be defined as any unwanted intercourse when a spouse isn't able to consent. Researchers estimate that between about 10 to 14% of married women experience rape within marriage. And unmarried but cohabitation couples are also included in this research. So let me try and get to my next. Okay, I'm so sorry about my PowerPoint. It's just not working or cooperating with me today. Okay, some of the top reasons why victims don't report. Now that we've seen the different forms of sexual assault, let's talk about why they don't report. I've heard people say before that it must have not really have happened because they would have reported the sexual assault. They must be lying. So here are some top reasons that they may not report. They did not define the experience as a crime. They may have been too young to report their victimization to law enforcement. They were too scared to report. Maybe they'd been threatened. They chose to deal with the sexual assault themselves or ask friends or family for help. Maybe they felt stupid, ashamed, embarrassed about what happened to them. They wanted to forget about it and move on with their lives. They were prevented from reporting it. Maybe they were threatened if they told that a family member would be hurt or mad that they participated. They thought that reporting it might jeopardize their employment. Maybe they blamed themselves. They worried about jeopardizing their immigration status. They may not have felt that they would be believed. There are a number of reasons that victims don't come forward and report. And when my daughter was sexually assaulted at the age of 11, she was threatened to not tell and waited about 3 to 4 years before she told anyone, including me. So threats are very scary and burdensome, especially for a child. She ended up having to go before a grand jury, and they wouldn't let me go in. And because she had waited several years to come forward with her statement, there was a man in the grand jury that didn't believe her and even accused her of lying. And she was just 15 at the time. So let me tell you that this act of not believing can and will make you feel victimized all over again. And it was very traumatic for my daughter. So maybe your emotions and feelings are all over the place. I'm trying to get to my next slide. Maybe your emotions and feelings are all over the map and you're not exactly sure how to process them or know what to do with what you're feeling. You may not have known if you would even live through the assault. Your body may have become paralyzed or just frozen out of shock and disbelief of what was happening to you. You may wonder if people see you and know what happened. And you may not be able to handle or cope with other people right now, and that's totally okay. And then the perpetrator, you may feel like you want to do something terrible to him or just even kill him. You may worry about your safety, and you may feel like you'll never be able to be intimate ever again. You may wonder if you'll ever get over the fact that you were sexually assaulted, and you may just feel completely helpless. So these are all normal and natural reactions to what has happened to you. Sexual violence is shockingly common in our society, and according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, nearly 1 in 5 women in the US are raped or sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, and it's often by someone they know and trust. So regardless of age or gender, the impact of sexual violence goes far beyond any physical injuries. So let's look at some of the immediate and chronic reactions from sexual assault and what happens. There are common reactions to sexual assault, and we have some immediate reactions and then chronic reactions. Some of the immediate reactions could be, but are definitely not limited to what I have on the screen. Emotional, shock, disbelief, embarrassment, shame, guilt, depression, powerless, disorientation, retriggering, minimizing, fear, anxiety, anger, and denial. Those are all immediate reactions to what has happened to you. But there's more chronic reactions as well that are going to be like feeling numb, maybe an unexplainable calmness and an inability to cry, questioning whether it really happened, wondering what people will think, feeling dirty and used as if there's something wrong with you, wanting to wash your hands all day. Feelings as if you did something to make it happen and questioning yourself if only you had done something different. Wondering how you can move past it and feeling so tired and helpless or hopeless. Wondering how you can move past it. Wondering if you will ever feel in control again. Not being able to sit still and having trouble getting through the day and maybe feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you continue to have flashbacks and you become afraid of everything and become a nervous wreck and having trouble breathing. Feelings of wanting to kill or hurt the perpetrator. Questioning yourself and saying that it wasn't really rape. So those are all chronic reactions that are probably ongoing through your recovery. There are a lot of myths and facts about rape and sexual assault, and we discussed a few last week in part 1, but here are a few more. Myth number 1, if you didn't fight back, you must not have thought it was that bad. The fact is, during a sexual assault, it's extremely common to freeze and be in shock and disbelief it is happening. Myth number 2, date rape is often a misunderstanding. The fact is that date rapists often claim they were drunk, or what we talked about earlier, they may believe that your no actually meant a yes. Another myth, people who don't say anything at the time must be lying when they make accusations. The fact is there is shame, embarrassment, shock, and memory gaps involved, and they may also be terrified to say anything because they may have been threatened. It takes time to also process what happened. And the fourth myth is, if you were sexually abused or raped, you will remain a victim for the rest of your life, and a little piece of you will forever be broken. The fact is, you can choose to be a survivor. So sexual assault can have a physiological, emotional, and physical effects on a survivor. These effects aren't always easy to deal with, but with the right help and support, they can be managed. Learning more can help you find the best form of care to begin the healing process. First, let's look at a few things that you may be going through in order for the healing to begin. It's very important to admit to yourself that you may be going through one or more of these reactions. Let me get to my next slide. My goodness. Okay. So first, there's trauma. And trauma occurs when a person's ability to cope with an event is overwhelmed. If you want to know more about trauma and its effects, please go to our Safety Crisis Center YouTube channel and listen to Amy's webinar on trauma-informed care. It's very informative, and it's very helpful in understanding the effects of trauma in more detail. The next one is fear, and you may have a fear of people believing you, fear of being alone, fear of the perpetrator coming back, and many other emotions that are fear-based. Isolation, you may feel completely alone and feel broken off from everyone around you. Post-traumatic stress disorder, it's an anxiety disorder that can result from a traumatic event. You may have heard the term used in relation to the military, but it can also apply to survivors of any type of trauma, including sexual violence. And I think Amy may go into that a little further in trauma-informed care. Survivors might experience uncharacteristic feelings of stress, fear, anxiety, and nervousness, and this is perfectly normal. So with PTSD, these feelings are extreme and can cause you to feel constantly in danger and make it difficult to function in everyday life. There's 3 main symptoms of PTSD. One is re-experiencing, feeling like you're reliving the event through flashbacks and dreams or intrusive thoughts. The second one would be avoidance. Intentionally or subconsciously changing your behavior to avoid scenarios associated with the event or losing interest in activities you used to enjoy. And the third symptom is hyperarousal, feeling on edge all the time, having difficulty sleeping, being easily startled or prone to sudden outbursts. I myself experienced PTSD right after my husband had a major accident and almost died. It wasn't until months later, after his full recovery, and he was fine, then I found myself having outbursts of crying for no reason, anger coming out of nowhere. I couldn't explain what it was that I was going through until I voiced it. And once I admitted it to myself of what was going on, it gave me a reason, and I knew that I would be all right because it did. It gave me a reason of what was going on with me. And sometimes just knowing what is going on with you and voicing it can be a really big help. Another thing is depression, and this is one of the most common reactions that victims of sexual assault go through. And then there's self-harm, a deliberate act of inflicting physical harm on oneself, usually in secret. And this can be cutting and burning, pulling out hair, scratching, picking skin, biting, anything that will bring harm to oneself. You may have gotten a sexually transmitted disease during the rape. An STI is a bacterial or viral infection passed from one person to another through vaginal, anal, or oral contact, and you'll need to seek a doctor's help immediately. And normally, if you go and report to the hospital soon after, they will treat you at that time as well. There might be substance abuse. You may use alcohol and drugs as a means to cope. And this can be very dangerous, as it will only kind of mask over what you're going through and feeling. If you're concerned that you're using substances in a way that could be harmful to your health or have concerns for someone you care about, consider learning more about the warning signs and places to find support. And at the end of this webinar, I've listed a number to call for help. Disassociation. In very simple terms, disassociation is a detachment from reality. It is one of the many defense mechanisms the brain can use to cope with trauma. It's often described as an out-of-body experience where someone feels detached from reality. It may be upsetting for someone to realize that they have disassociated, but it is a natural reaction to trauma. Panic attacks. This is a sudden feeling of intense fear and anxiety that happens in situations when there may be no immediate danger. Panic attacks may happen when you don't expect them, and could last 5 to 30 minutes, but sometimes maybe an hour or longer. They don't have a specific cause. However, they tend to affect people who have experienced trauma, abuse, or high levels of stress. Panic attacks are common among survivors of sexual violence. Then there's eating disorders, and anorexia, binge eating, and bulimia are 3 main signs or types of eating disorders. Sexual violence can affect survivors in many ways, including perceptions of the body and feelings of out of control. And then there's sleeping disorders. Sleeping disorders may involve not being able to sleep or wanting to sleep all the time. Sleeping through the day for hours at a time can make the depression worse, and then you have a downward spiraling out of control going on. Then pregnancy. The sexual assault may have resulted in a pregnancy. There are many places that you can go to for help if this happens. The percentages are very low of a pregnancy occurring from a sexual assault, with anywhere from 2 to 10% of pregnancy occurring. And then there's financial. The sexual assault could result in missed days at work, doctors and hospital fees, counseling fees, not to mention all the new safety measures that you'll probably put in place as a result of the assault, like putting all new locks on doors and windows, and maybe even an alarm system. Then there's suicide. Suicide is preventable, and suicidal thoughts aren't permanent. But if you're thinking about suicide, there are resources to give you the support you need to get through this tough time. Sexual and intimate health. You may find it hard to become intimate after an assault or have a hard time with a spouse, partner, or other loved one touch you. This will make time and patience to work through. You may not want to be around people or be able to handle them right now, and that's okay. It will just take time. Then there's body memories. The body itself is capable of storing memories to a cellular level, as opposed to only the brain, like sounds, smells, touches, and tastes. Flashbacks. This is when memories of a past trauma feel as if they are taking place in the current moment. And that means it's possible to feel like the experience of sexual violence is happening all over again. During a flashback, it can be difficult to connect with reality. It may even feel like the perpetrator is physically present. So what steps can you take for healing and recovery? Let me get my other slide. Okay, it can be extraordinarily difficult to admit that you were raped or sexually assaulted. There's a stigma attached. It can make you feel dirty and weak. You may also be afraid of how others will react. Will they judge you, look at you differently? It seems easier to downplay what happened or keep it secret, but when you stay silent, you deny yourself help and reinforce your victimhood. Like I said in the first session, telling someone is the beginning of taking back control and breaking that spell. So we would want you to reach out to someone you trust. It's common to think that if you don't talk about your rape, it didn't really happen, but you can't heal when you're avoiding the truth, and hiding only adds to feelings of shame. As scary as it is to open up, it will set you free. However, it's important to be selective about who you tell, especially at first. Your best bet is someone who will be supportive and empathetic and calm. If you don't have someone you trust, talk to a therapist or call a rape crisis hotline. The next step would be challenge your sense of hopelessness and isolation. Trauma leaves you feeling powerless and vulnerable. It's important to remind yourself that you have strengths and coping skills that can get you through tough times. One of the best ways to reclaim your sense of power is by helping others. Volunteer your time, give blood, reach out to a friend in need, or donate to your favorite charity. Excuse me. Another step would be consider joining a support group. For other rape or sexual abuse survivors, support groups can help you heal and feel less isolated and alone. They also provide invaluable information on how to cope with symptoms and work towards recovery. If you can't find a support group in your area, look for one online. Safety Crisis Center has support groups in Sulphur Springs, Mount Pleasant, and in Paris. So call us and ask for those times and places to meet. And at the end of this, I'll also have our number so you can write it down. Another step would be cope with feelings of guilt and shame. Even if you know in your brain, intellectually understand that you're not to blame for the rape or sexual attack, you may still struggle with a sense of guilt or shame. These feelings can surface immediately following the assault or even arise years later after the attack. But as you acknowledge the truth of what happened, it will be easier to fully accept that you are not responsible. You did not bring the assault on yourself, and you have nothing to be ashamed about. So feelings of guilt and shame often stem from misconceptions such as you didn't stop the assault from happening. After the fact, it's easy to second guess what you did or didn't do, but when you're in the midst of an assault, your brain and body are in shock. You can't think clearly. Many people say they feel frozen or paralyzed. So don't judge yourself for this natural reaction to trauma. You did the best you could under extreme circumstances, and if you could have stopped the assault, you would have. Another misconception is you trusted someone you shouldn't have. One of the most difficult things to deal with following an assault by someone you know is the violation of trust. It's natural to start questioning yourself and wondering if you missed warning signs. Just remember that your attacker is the only one to blame. Don't beat yourself up for assuming that your attacker was a decent human being. Your attacker is the one who should feel guilty and ashamed, not you. Another misconception is you were drunk or not cautious enough. Regardless of the circumstances, the only one who's responsible for the assault is the perpetrator. You didn't ask for it or deserve what happened to you. So assign responsibility where it belongs, the rapist. Another recovery step is prepare for flashback and upsetting memories. When you go through something stressful, your body temporarily goes into fight or flight. When the threat has passed, your body calms down. But traumatic experiences such as rape can cause your nervous system to become stuck in a state of high alert. You're hypersensitive to the smallest of stimuli, and this is the case for many rape survivors. Flashbacks, nightmares, and intrusive memories are extremely common, especially in the first few months following the assault. So if your nervous system remains stuck in the long term and you develop post-traumatic stress disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder can last much longer than that. So to reduce the stress of flashback and upsetting memories, try to anticipate and prepare for triggers. Some common triggers include anniversary dates, people or places associated with the rape, and certain sights, sounds, and even smells. So if you are aware of what triggers may cause an upsetting reaction, you'll be in a better position to understand what's happening and take steps to calm down. Another way to reduce the stress of flashbacks is pay attention to your body's danger signals. Your body and emotions give you clues when you're starting to feel stressed and unsafe. These clues include feeling maybe tense, holding your breath, racing thoughts, shortness of breath, hot flashes, dizziness, and nausea. Another recovery step would be to take immediate steps to self-soothe. When you notice any of the above symptoms, it's important to quickly act to calm yourself down before they spiral out of control. One of the quickest and most effective ways to calm anxiety and panic is to slow down your breathing. Accept and reassure yourself that this is a flashback, not reality. The traumatic event is over and you survived. Here's a simple script that can help maybe. I don't know if it will help you, but just tell yourself you're just feeling panic and frightened and overwhelmed. because you're remembering the rape and the sexual assault. But as you look around, you can see that the assault isn't happening right now and you're not actually in danger. So ground yourself in the present. Grounding techniques can help you direct your attention away from the flashback and back to your present environment. For example, try tapping or touching your arms or describing your actual environment and what you see when you look around, and name the place where you are and the current date and 3 things that you see when you look around. Another recovery step would be to reconnect to your body and feelings. Since your nervous system is in a hypersensitive state following a rape or assault, you may start trying to numb yourself or avoid any associations with the trauma. But you can't selectively numb your feelings. When you shut down your self-awareness and capacity for joy, you end up disconnected both emotionally and physically, just existing, but not fully living. So signs that you're avoiding and numbing in unhelpful ways is feeling physically shut down. You don't feel bodily sensations like you used to. You might even have trouble knowing the difference between pleasure and pain. Another sign is feeling separate from your body or surroundings. You may feel like you're watching yourself or the situation you're in rather than participating in it. Another sign is having trouble concentrating and remembering things. Using stimulants, risky activities, or physical pain to feel alive and counteract the empty feeling inside of you. Maybe compulsively using drugs and alcohol. Escaping through fantasies, daydreams, or excessive TV, video games, and things like that. Feeling detached from the world, the people in your life, and the activities you used to enjoy. To recover from rape, you need to reconnect your body to your feelings. It's frightening to get back in touch with your body and feelings following a sexual trauma. In many ways, rape makes your body the enemy, something that's been violated and contaminated, something you may hate or want to ignore. But it's also scary to face the intense feelings associated with the assault. But while the process of reconnecting may feel threatening, it's not actually dangerous. Feelings, while powerful, are not reality. They won't hurt you or drive you insane. The true danger to your physical and mental health comes from avoiding them. Once you're back in touch with your body and feelings, you will feel more safe and confident and powerful. And you can achieve this through following techniques. Rhythmic movement. Rhythm can be very healing. It helps us relax and regain a sense of control over our bodies. And anything that combines rhythm and movement will work, like dancing, drumming, marching. You can even incorporate it into your walking or your running routine by just concentrating on the back and forth movements of your arms and legs. Mindfulness meditation. You can practice mindfulness meditation anywhere, even while you're walking or eating. Simply just focus on what you're feeling in the present movement, including any bodily sensations and emotions, and the goal is to observe without judgment. You can try yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, any type of exercises. These activities combine body awareness with relaxing, focused movement, and can help relieve symptoms of PTSD and trauma. Massage. After rape, you may feel uncomfortable with human touch, but touching and being touched is an important way we give and receive affection and comfort, and you can begin to reopen yourself to human contact through massage therapy. Another recovery step is to stay connected. It's common to feel isolated and disconnected from others following a sexual assault. You may feel tempted to withdraw from social activities and your loved ones, but it's important to stay connected to life and the people who care about you. Support from other people is vital to your recovery. So remember that support doesn't mean that you always have to talk about or dwell on what happened. Having fun and laughing with people who care about you can be equally healing. So you can participate in social activities, even if you don't feel like it. Just do normal things with other people, things that have nothing to do with the sexual trauma. Reconnect with old friends. If you've retreated from relationships that were important to you, make the effort to reconnect. And then make new friends. If you live alone or far from family and friends, try to reach out and make new friends. You can take a class or join a club to meet people with similar interests. Connect to an alumni association or reach out to neighbors or work colleagues. And then nurture yourself. That's another recovery step. Healing from sexual trauma is gradual. It's an ongoing process. So it doesn't happen overnight, nor do the memories of the trauma ever disappear completely. This can make life seem difficult at times, but there are so many ways and steps that you can take to cope with recurring symptoms and reduce your anxiety and fear. Take time to rest and restore your body's balance. That means taking a break when you're tired and avoiding this temptation to lose yourself by throwing yourself into activities. Avoid doing anything compulsively, including working. If you're having trouble relaxing and letting down your guard, you may benefit from relaxation techniques such as the meditation or the yoga. Be smart about your media consumption. Sometimes just watching TV and any kind of program can be depressing, but could trigger bad memories or give you flashbacks. And this includes obvious things such as news reports about sexual violence and sexually explicit TV shows and movies. But you may also want to temporarily avoid anything that's overstimulating, including social media. And then take care of yourself physically. It's always important to eat right and exercise and get plenty of sleep, but even more so when you're healing from trauma. Exercise in particular can soothe your traumatized nervous system, relieve stress, and help you feel more powerful and in control of your body. Avoid alcohol and drugs. Avoid the temptation to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs. Substance use worsens many symptoms of trauma, including emotional numbing, social isolation, and anger and depression. It also interferes with treatment and can contribute to problems at home, in the workplace, and in your relationships. Alcohol and drugs will only mask over the issues and the symptoms, and the problems may manifest and come out in other devastating ways. And then the last recovery step is to make the choice to be a survivor and not a victim. You've heard the saying that you are what you eat. Well, you are also what you think. So make the choice to become a survivor and envision yourself as a survivor, and your subconscious mind will follow and get you there. And you may be feeling very fragile and vulnerable to being attacked again and don't feel safe. So you may be afraid to be alone. And this fear is totally natural. After being sexually assaulted, you may also feel humiliated, degraded, and depressed. You may want to isolate yourself even if you are afraid to be alone. These feelings are common, and it's helpful to your recovery to deal with them. A rape crisis hotline or crisis counseling center may be able to help you deal with these feelings whenever they arise. You may wonder if you'll ever feel safe again. It's very common for you to feel afraid, especially in circumstances similar to those under which the attack occurred, like the same place or the same time of day. Most people find they begin to feel safer after a period of time. The length of this period varies. Again, fear for your safety is a very normal reaction. A supportive, non-judgmental listener can help you deal with this normal reaction. You may be afraid that your attacker will return. Although many rapists threaten to return, in reality, very few ever do. Still, the threat itself can be frightening. Taking the precautions to make yourself and your home safer is one way of dealing with such a threat and the fear it causes, and we'll get to that in just a minute as well. Maybe you're considering purchasing pepper spray or a gun to protect yourself. It's not uncommon after a sexual assault to want to purchase a weapon. It's a good idea to consider the following before making a decision. Pepper spray and guns and knives can all be taken away and used against you during a sexual assault. Also, pepper spray canisters could malfunction at any time. You may not have your pepper spray or your weapon with you when you need it. So there's several things to consider. And as an alternative to weapons, you may want to enroll in self-defense. A good instructor can help turn fear into anger and then into action. And you can learn how to use awareness, assertiveness, and physical action to defend yourself. And learning self-defense is one way of dealing with fear and anxiety. It's also therapeutic, and what you learn becomes part of you, and you will always have it. You may not feel safe at home. Whether or not you were attacked in your home, you may not feel safe there, especially if you live alone. Many sexual assault survivors share this feeling as well. Some have found it helpful to stay with a supportive friend or relative until they feel less frightened or until they are able to move or make their home safer. Talking with a rape crisis counselor can help you determine the options available to you. Asking a friend or relative to stay with you, going to a hotel or motel, um, or maybe you need to move or consider moving. If you rent your home and were assaulted or stalked in your rental unit or somewhere else on the premises of your rental property, you have the right to terminate your lease early without a financial penalty. You can contact TASA, which is Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and find out. And I've added that number to the end of this webinar for your convenience as well. You may feel frightened when you go out of your house. It's not unusual for a rape survivor to temporarily lose a sense of personal safety when out of the house. Becoming familiar with self-protection strategies and being alert can help you regain a feeling of safety outside the home. Fear is a very normal, natural, and common reaction to sexual assault. Many survivors look for immediate solutions, like the suggestions that follow, like we're going to talk about here in a second. Sometimes reading these suggestions can create a sense of guilt, and you may think you could have prevented the assault. Always remember that the responsibility for sexual assault lies with the perpetrator and not you. And if I can get to this, okay. Safety at home. These are some ways that you can take precautions to make yourself feel more secure. Install locks on all doors and windows and use them. Know your neighbors, especially those that can be called in an emergency, like having emergency signals worked out with your neighbors. Whistle blast during the day, flashing lights at night can always help. And working with a neighborhood watch party, neighborhood watch can also be effective. And if you don't have one in your area, consider getting one. Avoid places where attackers might hide, bushes, alleys, when you're coming in and out of your home. Maintain good visibility around the home. Trim shrubs and trees and make sure all areas are well lit. Install a peephole in your front door. And if you can't install a peephole, always ask who's there before opening the door. A lot of women just call out, "I'll get it, Jack," to suggest that they're not alone. Before opening the door to any guest or repairman, demand identification from the person at your door. It is wise to check this identification by phone or ask a neighbor to keep you company while the repairman or guest is in your home. You don't want to be alone in your home with them, especially if you are not feeling safe. Teach your children not to open the door to anyone or tell any phone caller that they're alone. Many times children will get on the phone and grab it and just start blabbing where they are and telling everything. They're completely innocent, but will basically do whatever an adult will tell them or ask them unless we teach them. So teach your children not to tell anyone on the phone where you are or where you will be, or even answer the door. If you're a renter, you may request in writing that your landlord repair or install new locks on all the doors and windows. Your landlord is responsible for keeping such areas as the front and the back of the building, hallways, and courtyards well lit. And then safety on the street. Research has shown that people who stand straight, walk with a firm step, look ahead rather than down, and act like they know where they're going are less likely to be seen as possible victims. It is not necessary to stop and be polite when a stranger or slight acquaintance asks a question in a public place. It's okay to answer, "I don't know," and walk on, or not to answer at all. It's not necessary to let anyone force you into a conversation you don't want. Repeating firmly and with conviction, "No, I don't want to do that," has worked for some people too. Keep one hand free when carrying packages and avoid dark, empty places. Listen for footsteps and turn around if you think you're being followed, and check. If you think someone is following you, cross the street, yell, and if possible, run to the nearest lit area where there are other people. Have door keys and car keys ready before you get home to get your car. I personally always have my car keys between my fingers ready to punch someone in the eye with the key if they come up behind me. I've always done that, and I highly suggest that. Avoid walking alone if you are distracted, upset, or under the influence of any substance which might impair your action. Um, and lastly, be especially alert in elevators, parking structures, supermarket parking lots, and laundromats. Always enter these places with a friend or coworker whenever possible. Whoops, okay. Okay, so how will my family and friends react? Your family and friends will struggle with many feelings of their own. At the same time, you're struggling with yours. They may need assistance to understand. I know that for myself and having a daughter that was raped and molested at the age of 11, it was extremely hard. I blame myself for allowing her to go with this person. I was overwhelmed with guilt and needed counseling, not only for my daughter, but also for myself. Um, so your loved ones may struggle. They also may view sexual assault as a sex act rather than a crime of violence. And this misinformation needs to be corrected. They may mistakenly blame you or themselves for the assault. They may believe that not talking about feelings will make the feelings go away. They may just not know what to say. They may even try to avoid you and feel guilty. And they may have mixed feelings about what they could have done differently to have possibly stopped the assault. When you need to make your own decisions about reporting the assault or seeking other help, the important people in your life may seem to want to partner or to be comforted because of the violence you experienced. Your spouse or partner may pressure for more physical intimacy than you desire. Friends or family may ask questions about the assault that indicate a lack of understanding of what it was like for you. It's totally up to you to decide who and what to tell. However, it is also very important for you to have a support system you can turn to, and family and friends are often able to fulfill this need. Um, a spouse or partner may also avoid closeness with you or may feel that immediate intimacy will erase the trauma of the assault. Loved ones may become overprotective in trying to cope with their own feelings of fear and powerlessness and helplessness. Understanding the feelings of your loved ones does not mean that you must take responsibility for helping them cope with their feelings when you need to be dealing with your own. Um, but however, talking about your feelings directly, perhaps with the support of an outside person, can help everyone out. After being sexually assaulted, you may have mixed feelings about telling your friends and family, and you may also be extremely sensitive to the way that they respond. At a time when you may need to talk out your feelings, others may have difficulty listening. So here's some reason why, there may be many reasons why family members or victims don't tell family members. Um, the victim wishes to protect the family. Maybe they were threatened by the perpetrator and is afraid for a family member. They also just may not want family members to hurt. Family would not understand. Survivors wish to maintain their independence. Some psychologically distance from their families. Some adolescents are possibly geographically distant from family members, and maybe they're living with a different family member of where the assault happened. Okay, and then when a spouse or partner or sibling or a loved one has been raped or sexually assaulted, it can generate painful emotions and take a heavy toll on your relationship. Um, you may feel angry and frustrated or be desperate for your relationship to return to how it was before the assault, or even want to retaliate against your loved one's attacker. Excuse me. But it's your patience and your understanding and support that your loved one needs now, and not more displays of aggression or violence. It's normal to be upset and confused. Let your loved one know that you still love them. So this is what you can do to help. Reassure them that the assault was not their fault, and nothing they did or didn't do could make them to blame for what happened to them. Also allow your loved one to open up at their own pace. Some victims of sexual assault find it very difficult to talk about what happened, and others may need to talk about the assault over and over again. This can make you feel frustrated or uncomfortable, but don't try to force your loved one to open up or urge them to stop rehashing the past. Instead, let them know that you're there to listen whenever they want to talk. If hearing about your loved one's assault brings you discomfort, talking to another person can help put things in perspective. And that's what I had to do. I had to go to counseling for myself. Another thing you can do to help is to encourage your loved one to seek help, but not pressurize. Following the trauma of a rape, of sexual assault, many people feel totally disempowered. You can help your loved one to regain a sense of control by not pushing or persuading. Encourage them to reach out for help, but let them make the final decision. Take cues from your loved ones as to how you can best provide support. Another way to help is to show empathy and caution about physical intimacy. It's common for someone who's been sexually assaulted to shy away from physical touch, but at the same time, it's important they don't feel those closest to them are emotionally withdrawing, or that they've somehow been tarnished by the attack. As well as expressing affection verbally, seek permission to hold or touch your loved one. In the case of a spouse or sexual partner, understand your loved one will likely need time to regain a sense of control over their life and body before desiring sexual intimacy. And then take care of yourself. The more calm, relaxed, and focused you are, the better you'll be able to help your loved one. And what do they tell you on an airplane? To first put the oxygen mask over your mouth and then over the child or the loved one. If you aren't taking care of yourself, then you will not be able to help take care of your loved one. Also, be patient. Healing from the trauma of rape or sexual assault takes time. The victim may have flashbacks, nightmares, and debilitating fear, and other symptoms of PTSD can persist long after any physical injuries have healed. So be patient with them. One really important thing is to believe them. A victim that has been through a traumatic event needs to be believed. Otherwise, they can feel victimized all over again. And this was the case with my daughter when she went before the grand jury. She was traumatized all over again. Lastly, just listen. This is the best gift that you can give to a loved one who's been sexually assaulted. They just need for you to listen. One other thing that's not listed and was told to me by my counselor was that the victim has to be the one to make the decision whether to prosecute or not. You can't make that decision for them. They have to make it themselves, and it allows them to take back the power and control that was taken from them. In the case of my daughter, we had to let her decide. She decided on her own to press charges because she didn't want to see anyone else assaulted or hurt. Victims cannot be pressured into making any tough, quick decisions concerning their assault. So be patient with them as they have to take back control on their own. I know this is going to be really hard, but it is vital and necessary. So you don't want your loved one to feel victimized all over again. So if you have any questions or concerns, let's see, let me get to my PowerPoint is just not cooperating with me. But if you have any questions, just please email me at tpearson@safe-tagency.com or visit our website at safety.com. And as I promised, here are all the hotline numbers as well. And while you get those down, I will go to see if there are any comments. Okay. Reporting should not traumatize victims. And this is in the comments, and I'm just going to read those to you. Reporting should not re-traumatize victims. This sounds like the system-induced trauma we have discussed. Some people downplay that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Rape is rape. This is informative. Mount Pleasant office is 903-572-0973. And I'm sorry I didn't list those numbers at the end of my slide. Sulphur Springs office is 903-439-0325. And then positive self-talk and support talk is so important. The hotline is 903-575-9999, and it's answered 24/7. And then TASA, the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, is an important resource for survivors of rape and for persons who care about, support, and advocate for survivors of rape. Oh, and then someone else said, my grandmother taught me to carry my keys like that. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I am going to stop the recording and I will see you next week. Oh my goodness.